This week, Donald Trump signed a slew of executive orders paving the way to destroy virtually all of Barack Obama's climate change and environmental actions and executive orders. Here are some of the biggest changes that Trump has in store for us. The first is paving the way to eliminate the Clean Power Plan. So it's difficult to overstate how important the Clean Power Plan is in terms of our commitment to reaching the goals set by the Paris Climate Accord, to taking responsibility for the future change in global temperatures. But here's what it is. The Clean Power Plan was a major EPA rule aiming to cut emissions from existing US power plants 32% below 2005 levels by 2030. Now that is just a part of what's necessary for us to cut our total carbon emissions enough to avoid catastrophic climate change, but it's very important. It's a set of stringent requirements for existing power plants, and they are going to do what they can to destroy it based on this executive order. The next is also important, changing carbon standards for new coal plants. So Obama had fairly stringent regulations on existing power plants and even more stringent ones on new coal-fired power plants. It basically made it economically unfeasible to create new coal power plants, which is important. And it helped over the past few years to phase out something like 15,000 megawatts of coal-powered electricity generation has gone away over the past couple of years. This is one of the things affecting that. Now, again, they can't just immediately get rid of those, but they can drastically change the requirements, change definitions in a way getting rid of these regulations. The next is methane emissions regulations. One of the best things that Obama did for the environment was changing the abilities of companies to just simply release methane into the atmosphere. Now, methane is smaller by volume in terms of how much we emit, but its actual effect on global climate change is even stronger per unit volume. And so they're going to potentially destroy that, make it easier for companies to simply emit it. And we actually saw in California not too long ago a massive methane leak, and you can see the damage that it does almost in real time, basically.
So here's a quote from one of the articles covering this in the New York Times. Earlier this month, the EPA announced it was withdrawing a rule that required existing oil and gas well operators to provide information about methane emissions. So when you remove that rule, now they can emit all the methane they want, and they don't have to tell you about it. So that's basically saying, have at it, Hoss.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't play that.
It just sort of works.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? This methane that
we shouldn't even know.
That's even more damaging than carbon. They're like, I don't want to know. I don't want to just. Hey, are you making money? You made an extra $5. Who cares? Put all the methane you want into the air.
Yeah.
The American people don't need to know. What do we represent? The American people? No, we represent companies. No, actually, you represent the American people. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to find out on our behalf.
Hiding that information, great for the companies, bad for you. My recollection is that it's 86 times more damaging to the environment, but don't quote me on that. Look it up. Obama had set a goal of reducing methane emissions 40% below 2012 levels by 2025. And they were going to do different things to detect, plug leaks, and all of that. God knows what's going to happen to that limit in the next few years. The next is changing the calculations of the social cost of carbon. So this is really interesting, doesn't get talked about much. But back in 2009, Obama's White House gathered a dozen agencies together and tried to assign a dollar value to the cost of emitting a ton of carbon dioxide, taking into account scientific modeling on the damage caused by aspects of global warming, such as droughts and floods. They settled on a central estimate of around $36 per ton in 2015, rising over time. It's expected that it's actually far more costly than that, but they were starting somewhere. They might well just get rid of that entirely thanks to this new executive order by Donald Trump.
Let me just jump in there too. I love that. I think that's a great idea because that's about the free market. Now, I know Republicans say, oh no, for the right. No, you're not. You're a crony capitalist. You just want to help these companies no matter how much it hurts everyone else. So if you create a product and it has a byproduct, you should pay for the cost of that byproduct. You shouldn't force the public to pay for that cost. You shouldn't pay the whole world to pay for that cost. We didn't profit off your product, you did. So you should bear the actual cost of your product.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, let's say it's your two neighbors real quick. One of them is making a lot of money from doing something in his property, but all of the junk from that, the pollution or whatever else goes into your house. And he says, I don't care, that's gonna kill your kids or whatever it is. Well, then you should pay thousands of dollars to clean it up. But wait, I didn't make any money off of it. You're the one who made the money, and you're making me pay the cost. He's like, yeah, so what? And the crony capitalists, that is the Republican Party, come in and go, well, that guy gave me campaign donations that you didn't. So you suffer the cost, and he takes all the profits. That's not free market. It's also obviously not fair. If you make a product and it has a byproduct that costs a lot, you should pay that cost.
Yeah, and in terms of pollution, like that's a metaphor. It's also literally what's happening right now, and they want to double down on that. Next, they want to eliminate the moratorium on federal coal leasing. There's huge areas of the US with coal reserves that had been being leased out to coal companies at basically far lower than market cost, subsidizing the cost of digging up this coal and then burning it. Obama stopped all of that. He's put a moratorium on it for a period of a few years. We're not gonna do it. Now they're simply gonna open that up, and that's one of the things that they can do basically today if they want. The next is investigating anything that inhibits energy production. It is actually that broad. They want every one of these organizations to look at every rule, every regulation in any way that could inhibit energy production of any kind. That's the sort of toddlerish language they're using.
And what it actually means is inhibit the profits of our campaign contributors.
Exactly.
We will not allow it. We have to remove all of those inhibitors. And then you guys are gonna pay the cost, but hey, you never donated to Republicans, so that's your problem, not my problem.
Exactly. Finally, two things that aren't in this. It doesn't say whether they're going to remove themselves from the Paris Climate Accords, and they haven't yet categorically taken away the EPA's ability to regulate carbon emissions as an environmental pollutant. Those are two of the big boys, and they might be coming.
Okay, and finally in this regard, let's just think this through for a second. As they explain in the beginning of every article that covers this, this is about, as John laid out, the emissions for rules for power plants, limits on methane leaks, moratorium on federal coal leasing, use of social cost of carbons, etc. Now, as you look at that entire list, does anyone think that the Republicans would ever make any of that stuff safer and say, okay, now corporations, you're gonna have to pay a little bit more here because we don't want that poison in the air, because it affects us all and it affects our children. Now, so let's do a balancing act here. Some of this stuff we're gonna do less regulation, some of this stuff we're gonna do more regulation because we studied it. No one expects that. If you do, you're a fool. And of course, they never deliver that. All they ever do is less regulation, less costs on companies, more costs on you. Every single time. And including this case, every single rule that they pass was for less safety, less protection of consumers, and for more maximizing profit for the corporations that donated to them. Young Turks now has over 6 billion lifetime views. You know who did that? You did that. We're now larger than CNN, ABC, you name a news network online, we're larger than them. And you built all that as everyone scoffed and didn't believe. And here we are, guys, thanks to you. Build independent media together with us at tytnetwork.com/join.